What's up, guys? Hope everyone is doing well. In this video, I'm going to be going over the total altcoin market value. I'm going to touch on the Bitcoin dominance because this is showing something very eye-opening in terms of the beginning and the onset of the upcoming alt season. It's really been an accumulation and a build-up period to real full-on bull market behavior. And then afterwards, I'll touch on some individual altcoins like Ethereum, etc. But to go ahead and get it started here for this chart, which represents the total market value excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it still includes Cardano, and I personally see Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano as like the top big three cryptocurrencies, and outside of those three is when I personally start to label things as genuinely altcoins. But nonetheless, this is as altcoin as you can possibly get. And right now it currently sits around like 750 billion. If we look here at this uppermost descending resistance, it's currently above that with this wicked candle, quite comfortably above it. Although, like I said, I mean, it's sitting at the horizontal resistance, the lower bound at around 750. This is the local high as well, going back to March of this year. Afterwards, I think there's potential room to run into resistance as it starts to push like 900 billion. Afterwards, approximately 1 trillion is going to be that final criteria to see broke, so we can really then start to see the major volatility period of the altcoin bull market begin. And I think anywhere from around like 3 trillion upwards towards around 7 trillion at this point is where I'm looking. Sometime within next year. A lot of the times you'll see the altcoins, especially as you start to get away from like the top 10, 20, 40, so on and so forth, you'll start to see the altcoins lag behind Bitcoin. Something like Ethereum or Cardano, which a lot of people consider those altcoins, typically are topping out right at the same time Bitcoin is, maybe like a number of days or a few weeks. But then once you start to get, like I said, further and further away from like the top, let's say 50, 100 cryptocurrencies, they start to take maybe a few months to top out after Bitcoin and like Ethereum or Cardano have topped out. And generally for the altcoins and for Bitcoin, I think within the first half of next year is when we'll see Bitcoin top out. And as we start to get towards the end of that first half and enter like the first, 3-4 months is when we'll start to see a pretty large number of the altcoins top out a few months after we see Bitcoin top out. Moving in here to the Bitcoin dominance chart, I went over recently a chart for Bitcoin that demonstrated going all the way back to 2012. Every single American presidential election since then has been a highly bullish indication and signal. It's even more bullish than the halvings. The halvings typically happen a number of months beforehand, and Bitcoin will go sideways, maybe even slightly towards the downside for a number of months. But every single time the election happens within America for the president, afterwards Bitcoin is just immediately pumping and going borderline vertical and parabolic. And we see an inverse correlation here for the Bitcoin dominance. You can see each of these pink vertical lines here, 2016, like I said, these are for the election. So 2020, recently 2024. And you can see each time steep drop off, steep drop off. Will we see something like that again here for this third time? I think it's quite likely. I think over 50% personally is how I see it. And whenever you see Bitcoin, or rather the Bitcoin dominance here bottom out, associated with each of these turquoise lines you see here, beginning of 2018, that's when Bitcoin hit 20K. Here, around May of 2021, this is when Bitcoin was hitting 64K and solidifying the all-time high for the first bull run, or the first bullish leg of the overall longer-term bull market phase 1 of cycle 3 for Bitcoin, which I'll get to what that means here in a moment if you're not familiar with it already. And then we see here in November, roughly of 2022, this is when Bitcoin hit 69K. It basically was just going sideways and setting a double top. Whereas as Bitcoin was heading towards that, like roughly, let's say September to November 2022, this is when a lot of altcoins are exploding for their last time and heading towards their all-time highs a number of months after Bitcoin is. This projects out to potentially, like I said, just in general, I think we'll see this market top out and here for the dominance bottom out sometime next year. But given that this typically likes to bottom out with a range that respects the, or at least just factors in both Bitcoin and the altcoins. Like, for example, if we go back to 2017, late 2017, early 2018, we can see Dominance is bottoming out as Bitcoin is topping out. And then the second bottom right here, overall, what is seen here is this, we see a massive W right here as the bull market then begins, or rather the bear market begins for Bitcoin. And then the second bottom right here is typically a number of months after Bitcoin's already topped out, and then we start to see a pretty large number of altcoins top out. And we saw the same thing here as well in 2021 to 2022. We see right here, Bitcoin is, or the dominance is bottoming out in May, as we see Bitcoin topping out, and then extend right here to this final bottom in this, this accumulation period right here. Again, like I was saying, we see it bottoming out for the final time in this period. Altcoins are topping out, and then the Bitcoin bull market's already began at that point. Then the altcoins just start to dump even more than Bitcoin's about to dump, and then every time we see Bitcoin going up here, 2018 to 2019, 2022 to now currently, this is when the bull market is ending and the bear market's beginning. And as we see the dominance topping out, this is when we are starting to see Bitcoin reach that final third of its bull market. So around 2/3 into every Bitcoin bull market is when we see the altcoins start to really in their accumulation period and start to have a lot of volatility, as Bitcoin is almost done, around 66 to 70% done with this bull market. We see these altcoins, which is, funnily enough, just quite close to like the golden ratio, which would be 61.8%. But anyways, we're seeing something very similar that's happened since 2016. Right now, the dominance sits at this uppermost resistance. It could go a little bit higher towards maybe like 62, 64%. It could trickle up. Let's say Bitcoin heads to like 100, 120K. Dominance trickles up a little bit more, and then it finally falls down, because altcoins aren't really beginning to pump majorly just yet. I think we're a few weeks away, a couple months away from that really beginning, which, like I said, could open up the room for the dominance here to trickle up a little bit more, then perhaps come down and meet this support range that goes all the way back to 2018. So overall, this paints a very, very, very promising picture for the beginning of alt season, because so many people that have been in altcoins, Bitcoin's been doing great, but all the altcoins are basically still just going sideways in their accumulation range, or maybe they're just outside towards the upside of their accumulation range, but ultimately they haven't really done much yet. They haven't broken the prior all-time high, and so many people have been waiting for what seems to be just right around the corner, according to many things. If we look here at Ethereum, you see there's some horizontal. Right now, Ethereum needs to get above around 3.5, or rather 3.8K to around like 4.8K. We can see here the resistance, it's descending black resistance, has been broken already quite nicely. And then, like I said, right now we could see some very short-term, rejection, sideways action, just basically as Ethereum's loading up for the next move towards the upside at around like right where it is, around 3.5, 3.4K. And then, like I said, 3.8 to around 4.8K is going to be very important in terms of where it's going to top out at. I've been saying this for quite some time, but I think anywhere from around like 20 to 45K, as it starts hitting that 40 to 45K $1,000, or that 40 to $45,000 range, is when I think it starts to become quite likely that they're going to have to slow down here soon, because as it starts to reach that, it'll start being worth more than Bitcoin. Market value wise, and I definitely think it's possible. A lot of people think it's possible, or that even it will happen at some point where we'll see Ethereum eclipse the market value of Bitcoin. And I think just kind of expand on that a little bit, I think what is more likely what we'll see is because Bitcoin tops out, and then Bitcoin, or rather afterwards, Ethereum starts to top out maybe a number of days, number of weeks, but not too much longer than like a month or so after Bitcoin. And then as Ethereum's topping out, Bitcoin's already dropped from its all-time highs. So I think over the next few decades, we'll see during the all-time high periods where there'll be brief moments where Ethereum does eclipse the market value of Bitcoin, because Ethereum's reaching its all-time high, as like Bitcoin's already dropped like maybe 10, 20% from its all-time high. But in terms of this projection, this factors in my phase cycle theory for Bitcoin that I've gone over this channel many times. And just to briefly sum it up, each Bitcoin epoch, which is broken down into 2 cycles, and then the 2 cycles themselves are broken down into, or not 2 cycles. An epoch is made out of a cycle. That cycle breaks into 2 phases. And there's 4 peaks that you can clearly denote going all the way back in Bitcoin's history and then following it to the current moment. And you'll see this phase cycle or epic portion of the price continue to repeat over history and over time, to where you'll see like this massive W, such as we see here for Ethereum. You basically see this massive W pattern, and then you see a bull market, and you see retracement, and you see the final bull market. What you see right here, and what I just traced out, is phase 1 for here Ethereum, because obviously for those of you who have already been in this market for quite some time, and even those of you who are new, could probably maybe already have seen the fact that everything looks just about like Bitcoin, and it all moves with a very rough, very, very close respect of Bitcoin and time. And you can also see this with the phase cycle theory that I've gone over, like I said. So this is phase 1 for Ethereum, and the bull market projection would be to take the prior leg of the prior bull market due to the structure of the phase we're in, because the bull market for Bitcoin in the second phase is basically just a massive ABCD pattern. And the first leg and the second leg are very similar. The second leg is a little bit less bullish, but overall they're basically the same. And the unconservative target is, like I said, around like 45K. And then that is the unconservative target. And then the conservative target is somewhere around like 34K. But I definitely think, like I said, I think, because the second leg is not as bullish as the first leg, I definitely think, I think 20,000 is a very reasonable range or value for Ethereum to go to leading into next year, as it's making a new all-time high. And one thing I want to point out here as I move into Cardano is with this W, you not only see like a W here with just like a very clear first, second, bottom, you also see in between this accumulation period is shaped like an M. And overall, what you get is a massive W pattern, which I call a type 2 W, to the 2 peaks right here. And then you finally see the W play out. And you'll see here for Cardano the exact same thing. You see the bear market, and then you see accumulation period, takes the form of an M, and then you see the bull market. And that's what you see on Bitcoin as well. You don't really, the M, Bitcoin's phase 1 is more like a literal W like this, and then a lot of the altcoins will form this type 2 or accumulation M period in between the 2 bottoms of the double bottom. Here for Cardano, still needs to get above, if we look down here at this descending resistance, right now it's pushing right at 50 cents, which is really what it needs to get above. And really to solidify, it needs to get above 60 to around 70 cents, and then even higher. The last criteria would be to get above $1.60 to $2.60, corresponding to the prior all-time high back here. The projection, like I said, in terms of translating the phase cycle theory, here conservatively is going to be around $15, and then unconservatively is going to be pushing around like $28, maybe even $36, because the last time I did it, for whatever reason, it's up there, but I'll adjust it down a little bit more. Let's just say like approximately $30 at highest, maybe wicking up to like 36 or so. Here for Cardano. If you look here at XRP hasn't really traded the best over the last, let's see, going all the way back to 2017. So I mean, it's been quite a while at this point. I mean, really could go all the way back to specifically like mid 2017. And even now, as we're ending 2024, 2025 is about to start. I mean, roughly 7-8 years here, and XRP has not really done anything ever since this first bull market right here. It just hasn't really done much. You can see it's just kind of traded within this massive triangle, which could be a good thing. And given the fact that XRP won its lawsuit that it was in for quite some time recently, that's very good for it, obviously. And that might be the reason why it's, for example, here, look, this bull market compared to this bull market is, I mean, just absolutely just a massively drastic difference. And this prior bull market right here didn't even set like a new all-time high. It was lower than it, just really didn't perform that well. perhaps solely because of the case that it was in, and maybe other factors as well. But I do want to point out how, like I said, so there's this massive triangle here that it's not perfectly symmetrical, but it's quite symmetrical. It's close enough in my eyes. And perhaps leading into this upcoming bull market for XRP and the altcoins used in the beginning, perhaps we'll see XRP kind of compensate and make up for the fact that it's essentially just gone sideways and convergently sideways towards the end of this triangle for about 7 to 8 years. And although I do have this price target up here of $20, there is the one in terms of the phase cycle translation that unconservatively puts it around basically just retesting, maybe going a tad bit higher. Well, actually more up to 5, not necessarily retesting, but up to around like $5. And then the conservative one is the one that retests the all-time high somewhere at around just approximately like $3.50 or so. But if we look at this triangle and we apply a pattern that it could reach in terms of projection, which isn't guaranteed, but the unconservative one puts it towards like $32, and the conservative one is the one that puts it towards like $20. And when it comes to $20, I mean, that's not really much. I mean, at $20 with the circulating supply of XRP somewhere around like 57 billion it would be sitting right at 1 trillion at $20. So, I mean, it could definitely go higher, but at that point, I think at $20 seems to be the area where, similar to how I said with Ethereum, you might be wanting to think that it's probably going to have to slow down at some point. From top to bottom, that would be a 7,000% move. So overall, that's pretty low. It's not too high. So I mean, I would definitely say out of all the altcoins I've looked at, XRP seems to be on like the lower end of terms of gains, but nonetheless, I mean, it's still good at the end of the day. I mean, especially considering how, I mean, you have a lot of money in it and you have a lot of the coins, and I mean, you're still going to make good money either way. If you look here at LCX, this is a coin that I have not gone over in the past. Briefly looking into it, I didn't, in terms of what it stands for as a project, I didn't really see anything that gave me any major red flags. It is basically just like a use case, not use case, but more of a utility like token, representing the token for a exchange, like for cryptocurrencies and stable coins, other things as well. So it seems to be pretty, useful in that sense. The website's pretty well put together. I didn't really look into the people that are behind the project, so I don't know if there's anything that could be gathered out of the people behind it that could give some red flags in terms of the integrity of the project. But overall, in that sense, and also if you look at the chart, it's a major bull market. I mean, it performed very well last time around. So, I mean, those are two pluses here. This bull market in total was around 450,000%. Which is the highest I've seen, outside of meme coins or just some other ridiculous coin that started out so insanely cheap that it was able to make, astronomical 1,000,000+% gains because it was so cheap in the first place. But in terms of legitimate altcoins, this is the highest one that I've ever seen. The one prior to this was Phantom at around like 200 to 250% during the last bull market. So, I mean, there could be a lot of promise here. Before I get to the price target, there's this resistance right here. We can see around 13 cents is when it will start to break this. There's horizontal resistance sitting around like 35, 36. Let's just say round it up to 40 cents. At this point, LCX has been basically in an upward stride going all the way back to May of 2020, really solidly, more so in like June, July of 2021. I mean, it seems to be pretty strong in that sense. I mean, let's say it comes down a little bit more. There's very good reason to find support at around like 5.5 cents or so. There's also this ascending resistance, which would factor in as LCX starts to move higher here, assuming that it actually does so. Depending upon when it does that, it would, as it's pushing like 70 cents, maybe more so around like 60 to 80 cents is when it could potentially find some resistance here, but that's still quite a ways away. There's still many other resistances that need to be broken in order to find some genuine bull market hope with this coin. And in terms of the phase cycle translation, unconservatively, we get here pushing up towards around like $10, which would be the upper portion of this bubble over here. And then conservatively, we're getting somewhere around the bottom of this bubble at around like $5 or so. So approximately $5 to $10, maybe some wicks up to like approximately 12 cents or so. But overall, with the circulating supply of this coin, which is, you know, fairly small, it's not insanely small, but not super large as well. It sits at 771 million with a max supply of 950 million. Overall, it's still sitting below 1 billion, which is good. So, I mean, even at $40, this market value would only be approximately 30 billion. So it could definitely go way higher than the $5 to $10 that I've went over in this video that has some sort of, you know, structural, technical, logical, in terms of the phase cycle theory, projection, and translation, something behind it that has some a string of reasoning. Whereas, I mean, looking at the market value, it could go way higher than that in theory, which is something to obviously factor in as well. Lastly, here for Fox, this also did not, as I've briefly looked into it, give me personally any red flags or anything. It's similar to LCX in terms of it kind of being more like a utility token, and this token is just a token of its, you know, its project and what it represents. Gives like a cross-chain crypto trading platform, and even like a portfolio manager. There's a few things that it does that are quite important and useful within the broader cryptocurrency and blockchain solution space. Again, I didn't look too much into the people behind it, so I don't know much there, but I mean, it also does have a pretty low circulating supply, lower than LCX. This one sits at 377 million. Although on CoinMarketCap, the max supply, which I didn't look anywhere else, but the max supply on here is not shown. And if there has been no given max supply, that could be somewhat concerning, because all of a sudden one day, and right now the total supply is 1 billion. I mean, so that could, you know, be the max supply there, which would also, again, just be very low, be the same as LCX. But the fact that there perhaps may not be a known max supply could be, like I said, a red flag, because, you know, one day there could be dumped a lot of tokens into the circulation, which would drive the price down. But I mean, you know, not considering that, which I wouldn't say is that big of a deal. Overall, it looks very good. The chart doesn't really, as you can see here, have much data for me to go off of. I mean, there's various horizontal resistances. One right here around 12 cents. There's one right here around 40, 41 cents, and then basically 90 cents to $1 would be some areas to look out for. There's no prior bull market data. I don't really know potentially where this could go. So the only thing I have to go off of would be the circulating supply. And if this coin were to hit $100, it would also be valued at approximately 30 billion, like LCX at $40. From where it sits right now, if it were to go all the way up to $100, this would overall be around 170% move. From top to bottom to $100, it would be, you know, pushing 600,000%. So I mean, this coin, theoretically, factoring in the market value, has, you know, quite a lot of room it could gain. Because I mean, if at $100 pushing 600% and still only being worth approximately 30 billion out of a market value that I think is likely to go towards somewhere around 3 to 7 trillion for the altcoin space, that's just a small drop in the pond to that 3 to 7 trillion, especially if it pushes that upper bound to 7 trillion, and maybe even goes higher than that. Maybe it pushes upwards to 10 trillion, especially if we see Bitcoin push like 16 to 20 trillion, which would be, or not Bitcoin, but the entire market value push like 16 to 20 trillion, which would be my personal upper bound for this current cycle and this current bull market. But overall, everything here looks good. Everything just looks fantastic, as I was saying earlier, especially factoring in this Bitcoin dominance. But that was all that I wanted to go over and talk about in this video. So as always, none of this is meant to be financial advice, really just here for educational purposes. But all that being said and everything gone over, I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Ooh, I'm regretting now, won't I see you forever, start to